Yeah, I mean it's interesting when I did the QAnon chapter. There's actually uh there's a whole school of psychological counseling now that's come out of QAnon because so many people have, kind of bought into the idea. It's like a callback to the 70s when people talked about deprogramming cult members. It's almost like that.
Can you tell them what QAnon is, quick? Sorry.
No, but no problem. So QAnon is a conspiracy that believes that inside the US government there's this kind of cabal of bad actors who are trying to take over the government from within, right? Which is kind of normal, but then it gets weird. They also believe that this cabal kidnaps children to drain them of their adrenochrome to prolong their lives, right? And this is where you kind of work in the what about the children problem? Because apparently you guys are the target of QAnon because you're young and vital and you're going to help old people like me live to be 1,000 years old. So it can get really weird fast. But a lot of people, well-meaning people who want to protect children buy into this because they want to try to find a way to fix a problem that's really not there in a lot of cases. But it's gotten wrapped up in politics. It's been part of campaigns. We have a congresswoman from Georgia, uh, Marjorie Taylor Greene. She posted a YouTube video where she totally believes this conspiracy and she took it down. But of course, I found it because nothing hides on the internet. You know that. But you've got people elected into office who've campaigned on this idea. And it's dangerous, right? But it's also very prevalent and popular. So how do you deal with somebody like this? I guess kind of back to the question. I think confrontation is probably the worst process because they're just going to dig in harder. I mean, it's kind of this idea, maybe you want to think about this, offer them alternatives, or ask them how they came to the conclusion they made. All right. But it's got to be slow and patient, and it can't be one of these kind of knee-jerk, Thanksgiving dinner, confrontations that we all end up doing with, that uncle who thinks of this and posts it on YouTube or Facebook. So it's hard. I mean, one of the things I learned raising a kid is that's one of the things you really need when you're raising a kid. You got to be patient. You just can't make declarations and negate the other side. You got to kind of invite them in and start taking apart their story piece by piece to maybe have them look at it, not just you. So yeah, it's the therapeutic approach is going to be with us for a long time. And that really struck me when I was reading about QAnon because this has been going on for years. People are trying to find there's actually therapeutic communities among families now. It's almost like Al-Anon, where you're, meeting to try to discuss strategies. But yeah, there's no hard solution here, but it's going to take a lot of time.
So you talked about the QAnon stuff, like the people that believe in that stuff. Do you think that the January 6th insurrection had anything to do with that?
Oh, absolutely. One of the best things, golly, when you talk about evidence, right? Think about it this way. You've got a bunch of people who are sending selfies to the internet throughout the entire January 6th riot. Everybody kept records of everything they did. So you've got thousands of pictures. And if you look, you're going to find a lot of people wearing QAnon merch. I mean, they're right there. They got flags, sweatshirts, hats. And they're there because they really did think Congress was part of this immoral child, abducting cabal. So there's tons of stuff like that. I even found, of all things, I found a guy wearing a Kutztown hat at the January 6th riots, right? I'm thinking, oh God, I hope he's not an alumni, but he probably is, right? So nothing escapes. A lot of private groups actually tracked phone data where they could locate people at the speech in front of the White House, and then they could watch them walk all the way directly to the Capitol building because their phones were their GPS. I mean, they could show you exactly where. But if you track some of those QAnon websites, Facebook groups, and then later on when they got kicked off of Facebook, Instagram, Parler, MeWe, all you need to do is get into the old internet time machine and you can follow all those posts. I'll give you an example. Doug Mastriano, who ran for governor, right? He's a QAnon believer. He denied he was there. until people found the Instagram posts that he put, online, right along with his statements. And I have a friend who's a reporter in Bucks County. He filed Freedom of Information Act requests on letters that he wrote to Congress. I got them now. And the QAnon message is right in there. So the book I wrote, I actually did completely online, and it's incredible what you can find. So if you want to suss out QAnon data on January 6th, you can do it. It's not that hard. And generally, you could actually find people who've already done it. And there are plenty of private foundations that have worked with the FBI that have ended up convicting hundreds of these people. And a lot of that evidence is now public record. So, yeah, I mean, the sky's the limit if you want to look. It's pretty impressive.
So something I dealt with last school year, Tucker Carlson like online posted, I guess, like on-scene footage. It's supposed to be breaking, and this leads some to kind of like almost double down on it was peaceful and it was the FBI or Antifa or Kamala Harris or the police let them in and wanted them to do this, and it was, while at the same time all these prisoners are oppressed somehow. Like I'm not really, if they're Antifa, then I'm not really putting that together. But do you have like a response to that?
Yeah, I mean, it's so when you want to look at the story, you have to look at it in totality. You've got to look at all the record. And I think the term I use a lot is cherry picking. If you've got two officers confronting 500 protesters, they're not going to hold the line. They can't. So what the police are trying to do is damage control. They're trying to limit damage and distract the crowd and so on. It's not until way later that you have any numbers to try to resist, and it's a free-for-all. Police in riot gear fighting it out with these guys with bear spray and blunt instruments and, everything from, like I said, sledgehammers to crowbars and, all of it. What I would look for is a timestamp and when something was taken, where it was located. How many police were originally deployed around the Capitol? I don't think it was even 100. Nobody was prepared for this. And there's a fault of command and intelligence, but no, I mean, we're back to this idea of what is a norm. I mean, nobody expected it. So, now they are, right? But now you have, steel reinforced fencing and National Guard. We try to apply lessons afterwards, but before the fact, no one ever, I mean, there's no precedent for this. That's a problem. I was talking about this with 9/11. It's, we call it the incredibility factor. I mean, this is beyond your imagination. You don't think it's going to happen, so you don't prepare for it. I mean, when I was a kid, it was a different world. I mean, 50 years ago is obviously a way different country than today. Yeah, I'm getting a little bit, more philosophical, but I mean, what Carlson does is he cherry picks. And this to say these were tourists. I mean, you could find a screenshot of people walking through the rotunda. Sure, but I show pictures of people. I mean, who goes to a tourist event wearing body armor and ballistic helmets? I would go back to the court record. I mean, you have the Oath Keepers, the Proud Boys. I mean, you can establish networks of preparations before the fact. The biggest revelation I got out of the January 6th committee was the extensive plans for false electors, pressure on state government officials, and not just Georgia, but Michigan, Arizona. I mean, that kind of staggered me. I didn't realize how elaborate this was, because there's no way this is spontaneous. So again, totality, all of it, as opposed to Tucker finding a screenshot of two cops standing in front of a door. So, I mean, I think one of the reasons he got kicked off of Fox is because a lot of those claims ended up costing Fox a lot of money when Dominion sued. And I'll just finish this out because it's a great question. The best place to look for this story and how well it holds up in reality is find where it ends up in court. Is one of the things you can't escape in front of a judge is evidence. If you don't have it, it's not going to work. So you look at the number of lawsuits after 2020, I think there's like 65 of them. A tiny handful made it. I mean, we're talking one or two. And a lot of, you read the judges' decisions. Doesn't matter, Republican, Democrat, doesn't matter who appointed them. They can't believe this stuff ended up in front of them. Look at Rudy Giuliani. I mean, what happens with his career based on what he did outside of the law? His credibility is subject to that practice, a bad practice. So Anyway, the list goes on, but that's, yeah, I hope I didn't talk too long.
No, that's good. And then I mean, my follow-up would just be, I think what you say, the goalposts then move to say, well, they were rhinos or it was a
Yeah.
Democratic judge, so it doesn't count, or the evidence doesn't count, and so forth. But